as I usually start the Facebook stream first, and then the YouTube stream comes next. I'm going to add today's play here to the images if I can. All right, that's fine. All right, let's get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for February 11th, 2020. Qs basically flat, gapped up, and has now given back the gains. Just a little bit of a bounce there. SPY up 0.25%. All right, coming into today, the bias was bullish. Okay, expecting sell-offs to get bought. We now have retraced back to the support here on the hourly. Qs and SPY still look higher. Now, I feel like every other day, we entertain the idea that maybe this new high is going to be the top. And which is fine to conjecture and wonder, right? But it's different than, placing a trade on a hunch like that, right? And so if you've been following me for any amount of time, we've been following this hourly with the acknowledgement that the daily, the weekly, all the larger time frames are still in uptrends, right? And that if we get some kind of pullback, my goal here is not to pick the top, to guess that every time it makes a new high and doesn't follow through, to be the first person or the only person or anything like that to have said that's the top, right? Because if that were my goal, right, how many times would I be wrong, right? And so if we're going to be following the hourly trend here, right, what we're going to be watching for, if there is going to be a top here, is that we're going to have to move up, okay, put in a lower high, and then come in and break underneath this hourly trend, right? So we're going to need to see a lower high. Now we could kind of follow through maybe tomorrow, later in the week, right, and just break the trend that way, in which case we can look for the next sell setup or the next breakdown, right? Much in the same way that we were saying the same thing here, that we could break below these lows, but if we do, I'm going to have to see follow through the downside, because we were going to be going right into support, follow through the downside, next sell setup, next base breakdown. Okay, we can start to talk about a short-term pullback, short-term lower prices, right? So it's going to be very similar going into tomorrow, is that we're coming into support here, okay, on this pullback. Still going to be bullish going into tomorrow. If we do break the hourly here, we would need to get back to the lows from Monday, right? And then we can start to look for a base breakdown or sell setup, okay? So still going to be looking for expecting higher prices moving forward. We'll see if this hourly trend is ready to give it up. And then once we actually get a downtrend in the hourly, we can start talking about, okay, how much can we pull in on the daily, right? And then if we start to pull in on the daily, we can start to talk about how much are we going to pull in on the weekly, right? So we've been just following this larger time frame uptrend. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive, but just because it's, been doing this for this long doesn't mean I'm going to start kind of guessing tops, right? All right, let's get into today's plays. I think there were a lot of plays today, so I hope you were ready to do some trading. There was only one call from me, unfortunately. I think there really should have been some more things called, and even this JKS probably should have been called more than once. Did give an idea here for this breakout that we got here. I'll give you the full picture here off the 15. Yeah, that's pretty nice. But I'd already played it earlier. Yeah, it wasn't in it anymore and didn't feel like replaying it, but that's a nice move. Not as big maybe as a move, but as earlier, but pretty good follow through there on that 15-minute breakout. Now, what we did play here in the morning on this JKS was this. All right, was this pullback. I'll come back to that. Let's take a look at the gap here. Okay, so the gap here was looking like it wanted to try to do a lower high here, like it was going to come in a little bit, and then we ended up gapping up today, clearing that, right, and then staying very, very strong. Okay, staying very strong. You might be looking at this and wondering, should this be considered a novice gap because it's coming from a few bars up? And the first thing that I ask myself when I come across a gap, is it pro or novice, is it far and away from the 20 MA prior to the gap? Okay, so it needs to be, the best one that we had last year was the RAD. Okay, and novice means we can fade it. Doesn't have anything to do with the people involved, just means that likely the gap is going to get sold. Is it far and away from the 20 MA prior to the gap and then gapping up? Now, if it's far and away from the 20 MA and then gaps down into the 20 MA, that's going to be professional because you're gapping against the trend. Novice gaps are a continuation of the trend, potentially something getting ahead of itself, and then we can expect that perhaps profit taking is going to come into play and fade the gap. Now, this is professional for me, not at all extended from the 20 MA prior to the gap. Okay, so just to make that clear, I think I've made that pretty clear, like a few times a week maybe on how I determine pro or novice. And so I didn't get any questions on that today, which I think is good. So hopefully, you know, the message has been received there. So bullish bias on this, pro gap. All right. Now, first targets were 24.30. Okay, looking at here, 24.30 here, because that was where last time sellers stepped up, right, and sold it right into there. So that was the first target. But if this thing is going to move, right, as much as it was showing the strength, a decent enough gap, right, then that can be a first target. But what was the next target, right? Looking for much, much more, which is why we hold runners. Now, I didn't hold a runner in this case. Well, I mean, I held it until it broke 25. Okay, once it broke 25, I said, let's take the rest because it was going to be a while before this next hourly bar was going to finish for me. And we would have had to live through a pretty decent pullback. Like, it wouldn't have been nice to live through this bar because at the time when it was breaking 25, we basically, yeah, we're still in this bar. Could have put the stop here, which still would have been better than break even, but still a lot to give back. So I decided, let's take the whole thing. I don't want to wait for the next bars. But if I had, then you'd be in it till end of day. And that's a pretty nice move there. I don't know what the full extent of the move is yet. I'll look at it here once we wrap up here. How much the max move potential was, how much I actually captured, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, hourly held up really, really well. And so could have also replayed, right? Like I said, 15-minute base breakout, nice tight bars right off the 20 MA there. So that was the only official play there for me on the JKS. There were a couple plays that I missed out on. So I do want to go over them, not only for me to just, you know, look at kind of what was the pass there, how well did it work, but also for you can see what was kind of going on here today. Now, the miss on the GT here, I wasn't sure if it was trading well enough here at the open, but had a nice 1 minute breakdown right off the bat, right here at the open, nice consolidation there, and then base breakdown. Okay, so you'd be entering either under low of the day or underneath this green bar, and then you just put your stop above this consolidation area. So I think for this, yeah, 12.27, I probably would have given it to 12.30 just because it traded with a few cents spread. And then it also set up another setup here. There's a 5 minute sell here, and then another breakdown here. So really nice GT, and the reason that the bias on this GT would be short is because of the gap, right? We were prior to this, right? Kind of stuck in this range. Looks weak on all time frames. without being novice on the gap, right? So is the gap extended away from the 20 MA part of the gap? Not really. It's right there. So GT, and then the other really nice short that was out there today was the DBD. Nice breakdown here. Base, 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 right? This I would not have played up in here. I think some people would. It is part of some people's plan. The retracement is a little bit too much for me. Be concerned that really it's not as weak as I would have liked to have seen when it does that amount of retracement. So this I like a lot more. This I can do in the DBD. So the DBD breakdown, pretty painless little follow play there. Not little, actually, pretty big play there on the DBD, and pretty good gap. Okay, so I thought, yeah, I let some opportunities go today. And so, going into tomorrow, not that I want to go crazy and just play everything and anything, but, it's just, we feel kind of bad, of course, letting things go or missing out. But, this is what we want to see. It's what we expect from earnings season. It's what I was saying, yesterday, because yesterday I wasn't very active, but coming into today, I thought this week should still have a lot of trading. I mentioned on Friday, too, that I expect next week still have a lot of plays, a lot of good gaps, a lot of good follow through. So, hopefully that just keeps up. It's a good sign. So hopefully you did really well today. If you feel like you missed out, then just make sure tomorrow, take some good plays, and we'll see how the market does. Okay, market, we're getting an hourly pullback. We'll see if this pullback kind of wants to continue enough to break the hourly uptrend here, but going into tomorrow, still bullish. Okay. All right. So that'll do it for today's market wrap, and I will talk to you tomorrow. All right. Have a good evening.